What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more Goa-trance, and we're back with some vintage classic Goa-trance. We're talking a tune from 96, which I've said in some videos over the last couple of years that for me, 96 is a real golden age for a lot of different rave-related genres, Goa-trance in particular. And yeah, we're going to listen to a tune by Etnica, two guys from Italy, also who went by the name Plebeians, and who are still around to this day. And we're going to listen to the final track on their Alien Protein album, 1996, and it's called Trip Tonite, though Tonite is spelled Tonite, which I suppose you can see in the video title. And yeah, my history with this is complicated in that I've never had it on vinyl. A couple times I've tried to get a copy, but it's much coveted, and even old or used copies in not the greatest condition still go for great prices or command great prices on Discogs. But I do have an MP3 of it, and I originally heard it as part of a mixtape back in the 90s. Remember actual mixtapes? My older brother, who was the person who took me to my first few Goa-trance parties, which led me to go to, like LA techno warehouse raves, so who sort of introduced me to the rave world. He had a DJ mixtape by Alex Kornfeld, who isn't really in the scene anymore, but interestingly enough, he was a Goa-trance DJ back in the 90s, eventually became like a sound engineer and sound design guy for films, Hollywood feature films. So he continued on with music, but in a different phase, or a different arena, if you will. Nevertheless, he had a mixtape, I'm forgetting the name of it now, I know it's somewhere on Mixcloud, I think you can find it, but the opening track of the tape was this tune. Now, the tape didn't have a track list, so at the time it was like, what is this amazing tune? And it took me a few years to figure it out. Eventually, I stumbled across it via Discogs and was like, oh my god, it's that tune. And by then I had long, lost or not had the mixtape anymore. So yeah, to me, it's the last track on the Alien Protein album, but to me it's like the best Goa-trance set opener of all time. It has a very epic ambient intro with like a wicked, not menacing, but seemingly like dangerous. It feels like something dangerous is coming. Synth line that sort of cascades up and down, or I guess cascades the wrong word because that's like falling from one thing to another. But it rises and falls repeatedly. Eventually it comes in with a breakbeat, and after it goes around a couple times with the breakbeat, it finally brings in the full Goa-trance percussion scheme. And again, the first time I heard this on the tape, it was like, oh my god, this is incredible. I don't know if I ever heard anyone play it at a party, even though I went to many Goa-trance parties back then. It was always just a tune that I remembered from the tape, and again, eventually discover what it was. So, with no further ado, let's listen to it. This is Etnica, their tune Trip Tonite, the final track on their 1996 album Alien Protein. Luca is engaged in the most slow motion somersault I've ever seen. Yeah, I mean, it's all the parts. I noticed right at the end that little, like, two note, very rapid rhythm that just, is behind everything. And obviously, that main rising and falling melody is fantastic. It comes in a couple different idioms. There's that tension string that drops or that comes to the fore right before the actual Goa trance rhythm comes in at the beginning. That's always my favorite part. And yeah, it's just a masterpiece. That long ambient intro, the breakbeat before that moment where the proper like Goa trance rhythm comes in, all fantastic. There's acid work, which first like comes in like a storm, making the melody recede, and then there's at least one measure where they're together in the second half of the track before, again, the main melody ducks out and lets the acid take over. So it's just a masterpiece. And again, like, I'm not sure, it might even be the Pleiadians material that is some of the most famous work these two guys have done, although I think the Etnica stuff is regarded basically on the same level, and I think Etnica came first and is more volume than the Pleiadian stuff. But of all their works, I do think this is still my favorite. It'll always have a special place for me, not just because I think it's a great tune, but because it was in the really early days of me getting into this music and starting to go to some parties, and when my brother gave me that mixtape, up to that point I had only been listening to acid trance and acid techno because I got a couple CDs when I first started to hear this stuff, even though my brother played Goa trance for me like first. So yeah, when he gave me this tape, it's like, oh, you still listen to Goa, check this out. And I put it in my tape player in my car, and it was like, oh my god, what is this tune? So took me a while to find out. I still don't have it on vinyl, maybe one day, but regardless, it's a classic. It came into my head earlier, and I felt like, you know what, I haven't reacted to that. It's a 9-minute classic. Let's go the full distance. So hopefully you were transported a bit by that. Luca certainly was, although she's still trying to figure out her gymnastics. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time. Peace.